Atheist Alliance International Podcast.
I don't make this stuff up.
You know, if you put Jesus Christ first, that he'll look after all your bills.
It's not fake, it's faith.
Hello, and welcome to the Atheist Alliance International Podcast. I'm your host, Jason. Just before we get started, I'd like to remind everyone to please like and subscribe. Joining us today is Lon Ostrander, who is the president of the Clergy Project. So for those of you who may not be aware of what this is, Lon is here to tell us all about this worthwhile initiative. So Lon, thank you for joining us today.
Well, you're very welcome. It's good to be here.
So what would you like to do first? Would you like to tell us about your journey, or would you like to describe the Clergy Project first? I'll turn it over to you.
Oh, let's talk about my journey briefly. I was raised in a Christian family. My church experience initially was with Pentecostal church. So they like to... They did a fine job of indoctrinating me and scaring the hell into me. And when I was about 8 years old, we moved into town from the country and joined a local regular Baptist church because we got invited, and it was the newest church facility in town. So apparently my parents thought that was a good idea. And so raised Christian, married later in my adulthood, moved around from various denominations, finally settled with the Central New York district of the Wesleyan Church, which is branch off from the Methodist Church. They tend to be more conservative and more fundamentalist. And while I was in the Wesleyan Church, I seemed to perceive a call from God himself to the ministry. And at that time, I was 41 years old and working a full-time job, a few part-time jobs. Had a wife and two young sons, and the denomination at that time had a program that we could take all of our ministry and ordination preparation courses online. And that was through Indiana Wesleyan University. So I did that for many of my courses and took some others at a Wesleyan college. And so I started studying when I was 41 and took my first church in Georgia when I was about, would have been 45, 1995. Yeah, went to Georgia, sold our house, took my kids out of school in New York and took them down there. Not too much of a problem for our younger son, but our older son was looking at his senior year in high school. But in Georgia, it doesn't count if you don't take it in Georgia. So we actually had to send him back home to stay with his grandparents for his senior year. Pastored in Georgia for 1 year, had some issues. The Wesleyan Church has what I call silly season. They have a time for pastors to candidate at other churches and for churches to call for people to candidate. So that's the time you resign if you're not staying where you are. And so I went from there to a church in Pennsylvania and pastored there for a year, and similar story. Went back home and served as assistant pastor at a local Wesleyan church for a couple years. And all the while taking courses to make myself eligible for ordination. 10 years into a 7-year process, I finally concluded that the Wesleyan Church had no intentions of ordaining me. And so I separated from the church, and that would have been in 2001. But I was not an atheist until 6 years after I left the pulpit in 2007. And I was on assignment in Osaka, Japan. And it occurred to me that belief in God was entirely optional and not very useful. So I said to myself, tomorrow I'm an atheist and we'll see how that goes. if it doesn't go well, I suppose I can repent of that and go back to God. So anyways, never looked back. Never second thought. My wife wasn't real happy, but we're still together. And so that can be done. So we're looking at our 45th wedding anniversary this December.
And your wife is still a believer? Or
She is
transitioned with you?
She is what I will call a nominal believer. She did not transition with me, but she does not go to church. But she reads her Bible and watches some TV evangelists and has her little devotional book. And we tend not to talk about theology because that doesn't go well. So
you mentioned at the start bouncing around the number of denominations. I sensed there might be a story there. What was causing you to bounce around?
Well, not a whole lot. When we got married, we just settled in the evangelical free church for a while, and then we spent some time at the Methodist church and an American Baptist church, and no plan, no huge issues. We were just wandering around. I'd always been trying to make sense of what the Bible says in theology, so I was kind of interested in gaining some experience with other denominations. But of course,
so it wasn't like you were looking for.
Those denominations obviously don't agree, and that's why we have more than 2,000 Christian denominations. There's nothing Christians can agree on.
So it's not like you were dissatisfied with a specific strain of that denomination you were.
No, I'm not really dissatisfied. And when we bought a house, we moved to a town called Horseheads, which is better than being named for the other end of the horse. And there was a Wesleyan church nearby, so it was handy, and that's where we went and settled there for several years, and then was sent out as a pastor from that church.
Okay. Yeah, because I do know some people who have gone in search of the right answer, like bouncing from church to church. So that obviously wasn't a factor in your case.
Yeah. That was kind of a side thing. I was always interested in theology and exploring different denominations and what their beliefs were, but hoping someone actually had it all together, but obviously to no avail. So a big waste of time.
So when you were in Osaka, what was there an aha moment, or it was just kind of a slow dawning comprehension for you?
Well, of course, there were many atheists in Japan. There were also Buddhists and some other denominations I really wasn't familiar with. But I realized that people that didn't go around talking about religion all the time were actually pretty decent folks. I did find a Christian church in Osaka, Japan, and during a social time made the mistake of sitting on the piano bench to have some coffee and snacks, and apparently the piano bench was a sacred cow, and I got spoken to about that. So it's the same all over.
So you were saying around 2006 and 7 you became an atheist. It's about the same time.
2007, yes.
Okay, so that's around the time that the God delusion and the Four Horsemen were becoming quite popular. Was there any influence there, or you kind of found out about them later?
That's an issue there, because it was while I was in Japan that I read the God delusion and God is Not Great. Yeah, Christopher Hitchinson. Yeah. So
and did that help you? Was that kind of a shove over the fence reading those books?
Yes, yeah.
Because
I realized there were all sorts of theological problems among the denominations and within the religion. But my default position was, of course, there must be a God, because that's what they beat into my head when I was a little kid. So I would say at that point, having read those books, that's when I realized, there doesn't have to be a God, and that's quite all right. I'm going to head in that direction.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you were working in Osaka with the church there?
Yes. No, I was working in secular work. So,
secular work. Okay.
yep, and in industry. I'm still doing it. I should be retired hopefully in July. I hope. I'm 73 years old, so I should start thinking about retirement, maybe. Yeah.
So moving then into the Clergy Project. So you said you didn't become a minister until into your 40s. So
Yeah.
the Clergy Project, as for, I don't want to steal your thunder, but just a brief summary, as I understand it, the Clergy Project is to help the clergy who basically have no other life skills. They've basically been trained for the ministry. They no longer believe. And so the Clergy Project helps them with job retraining. So you obviously you had skills before, you had skills after. So it wasn't so much of an issue for you.
Fortunately, yes. So when I left the pulpit and decided I wasn't going back, yes, I just transitioned back into industry from where I came. Okay. So yeah, so when I first realized that I was no longer a believer and embraced the label of atheist, the Clergy Project did not yet exist. And I think, as you probably know, got its start in 2011. And the Clergy Project and Atheist Alliance International have a little bit of common history, because the Clergy Project started as a result of Dan Barker and Richard Dawkins meeting at a certain humanist conference in Iceland. And I do believe that was probably the Atheist Alliance International's first international conference. And they talked, and Dan Barker was, of course, was a former pastor. And he and Richard decided that there was a need to locate other people in our situation and develop some way to help them and support and encourage them. So yes, that was your international conference, correct?
It was before my time, but
well, must have been. Yeah. Must have been, because I just saw on your website that you had your first international conference there in Iceland in 2006. So okay. Just discovered that a couple minutes ago myself, doing a little last minute homework.
Good to know. So
yeah.
Okay. So we facilitated that conversation.
Yes,
that meetup.
You definitely did. And so the Clergy Project was launched in March of 2011. I was very excited to find it. I probably Googled, I don't know, apostate clergy or something like that. And to my surprise, there they were. That would have been in the fall of 2011. And I actually joined the Clergy Project in November of 2011. So fairly early on. I think we only had about 100 members at that point. And now we have just about 1,250.
Okay. So
we've grown, not fast enough. I think we kind of got started off as kind of a secret society, and purposely staying under the radar. I like now to get the brand out there. I wish that everybody knew about the Clergy Project. So. Yeah, because they need to know, because these things happen. We change our minds.
Yeah. And so you joined as not obviously somebody needing support, but I presume you joined as wanting to just find some common ground with other people.
Yeah. I didn't need support. Of course, when we deconvert, we think we're like the only ones in the world that don't believe. Everybody around us in our bubble believes, we think. I have a hunch nobody really believes, but they pretend they do because they're afraid to come out. And then they have to pretend that they're not pretending and on into infinity. So, So I was very happy to find some other folks that were religious leaders that no longer believed. I really had no intentions of getting involved in the administration of the group. I was good enough to be on the roll that will never be called up yonder, and see the posts on the forums and just feel like I was part of a community.
Okay. And so then what happened to get you into the administration?
Well, being the president of a nonprofit corporation, a small nonprofit corporation as the Clergy Project doesn't pay anything. So it's not like I had to aspire to anything or compete with anybody or campaign against anyone to get the position. Had gotten involved on a committee, and then I found myself on the board, and I was trying to just standing there minding my own business. And my predecessor, life kind of piled up on him, and he couldn't finish his term. So I took the last year of his term as president in 2018 while I was on assignment in Mexico, and then was elected for a following 3-year term, and elected again for another 3-year term. And so this term will be complete at the end of 2024.
Okay. And have there been any big initiatives under your mandate that you'd like to talk about that you've undertaken?
No, I'm just kind of a maintenance guy and look for things to surface organically. So there are things happening that are somewhat interesting. Last January, we had a panel discussion. We were hosted by the Center for Inquiry in Vancouver, Canada. So several of us convened there, and we did a panel discussion, and it was recorded. And the person that was the head of the Vancouver chapter of the CFI is also on our board of directors. So that was his idea. Went real well. We also have a young lady on the board, and she produces YouTube videos under the name of Apostate Ashley. And on her videos, among other topical things, she has interviewed several Clergy Project folks. So we're getting the word out there via different media. And as I say, continuing to grow. And the TCP mission statement is to provide support, community, and hope for current and former religious leaders who no longer hold supernatural beliefs. So that's what we try to do. It generally runs quite smoothly. I find these atheists to be far more easier to work with than some church people I remember. So that's good. So I mentioned we are now standing at just about 1,250 participants. Of those, 25% are still current, except that's not accurate because I know that there are a lot of people that transition out of religious work and into secular work and forget to share the good news with us. So, but as much as I can keep up with those that do to tip us off, we stay right about 25% currently serving. 14% of those are female, which is probably a higher representation than in the religious community as a whole. But the ladies are a little smarter than us guys are, I guess. So, and we have several.
So how about globally? Like, is your membership majority in the U.S., or you've got a pretty even mix globally?
Yes, about 95% are in the U.S., but we have at least 30 Christian denominations represented. We have also have former rabbis and former imams. We have one former imam on the board, and other religions that are represented would be Buddhism, Hinduism, Islam, Native American tribal beliefs, Raeliism. Yes, we have one Mooney, one Zoroastrian, and a couple former Wiccan priests. And we are now in, I think it would be 51 countries around the world. As you would imagine, we have scores of Canadians that are with us, and then we have folks in a lot of countries scattered all over the planet. Sadly, many smaller countries, there's only one lonely TCP participant in the whole country. So So
Well,
we're
at least with
scared
the
about.
at least with the
Yeah,
internet, they can talk to each other. Like there's some like online support available. So
exactly. So we have what we started with was an online forum that is just for our people, and we have a closed Facebook group for our folks, and we also have a Friends of the Clergy Project Facebook group now. So our fans can get on there and talk to us.
I presume there's some vetting process going on to ensure that these people are who they say they are. That you're not being infiltrated by, like, say, for the ex-imam, that he's not some fundamentalist jihadi who's trying to infiltrate and get information on other ex-Muslims.
Yes, we have a screening process. So the folks go to our public website, and they can find information there about the Clergy Project, and they can find out how to join the Clergy Project. They fill out an application. They're contacted by one of our screeners, and they get interviewed, and they have to, discern that they're legit and truly non-believers and not trying to infiltrate the organization. So we've done really well. I have no memory of anybody getting in that, intentionally getting in that was trying to undermine what we were doing.
And has your process caught some people who've been trying, or at least you assumed they were trying to
I'm sure
sneak their way in?
No, not that I know of, but we've certainly had some people that we've turned down because, they need to be, first of all, they really need to be atheists. We don't deal with people that are going through a crisis of faith. We refer them to recovery from religion. So, so we don't deal with that. So we bring them in. There have been a couple cases where people were not so settled in as we thought they were. Maybe one or two that actually went back to religion, and so we make sure that we send them on their way. And so yeah, that part has gone pretty well.
Okay. And so for the support that you offer, where does the funding from that come from? Is it part of a ongoing donations, or does FFRF have some funds available?
No, we're actually independent of FFRF. In fact, we were organized as a 501c3 corporation in 2015. We operate on donations and a small grant or two here or there. We offer vocational transitional assistance for our folks, as you alluded to. If they've spent their entire adult lives as pastors, never done anything else, they're going to need some help with resumes and interview skills and some guidance as to where they can go. So we do provide that. We subsidize that, and that's been pretty successful. We also have psychological counseling through the Secular Therapy Project, which is by way of recovering from religion. And we also have some in-house professional counseling people, so a few of those. So we do what we can to help folks. We subsidize the psychological counseling right now up to $50 per session, and they're responsible for the rest. So,
well, that goes a long way.
Yeah, I think we should probably I need to talk to the board about increasing the amount of that subsidy, because.
And what about job training? Do you help subsidize job training, or you just point them to resources? And
Yeah. No, we do that. We do that in house. We have one of our board members runs that program and operates it himself, and he gives them job training skills, interviews, and resumes, and he's doing a good job. He's real successful with that. So we've had a lot of people go through that program. And as you might guess, people who are former religious leaders may typically go into psychology themselves and be therapists, or go into social work and that sort of thing, and a variety of other things. But social work and counseling would be pretty common among us.
And do the universities give like credit for life experience to help move them through the system? They don't have to start like, first year, a university degree. They get some credit.
That I really can't speak to, as a matter of fact, but I expect some universities do. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. And so what about in terms of like family support? I understand that's quite common. Like a lot of people that I understand, like they make the decision, but their families are still very religious. Do you provide some sort of counseling to help them come out to their families?
Yeah, and a lot of that isn't formal counseling, but just being able to talk to each other and communicate to each other on the forums and in our Facebook closed group. And people will typically, when they join, they'll take what they need. They'll log onto the forum and they'll read posts and reply and may or may not post. Everybody's different, but there's not a huge activity on the forums at any given time. There's a handful of people that are posting and replying, and then the faces change and newer people come on, and it's interesting when the new people come on. They quite often spend some time going through the old forum posts and maybe a discussion that was going on back in years ago in 2012, 2013. They find that interesting and they'll reply, and now that discussion is back at the top, and so we have a lot of information that they can see and resort to there. So yeah.
So for the senior class, to phrase it, that those who've been through the counseling and have come out the other side, do they act in some degree as mentors for the new class and help guide them?
They do. There's no formal program for that, and as you can imagine, some of those folks are interested in pursuing leadership, getting on the board, serving on committees and things like that, and a lot of them aren't. And they'll take what they need and go on their way, so that's fine.
Okay, interesting. So
yeah.
So is there any new? I know I know here at AAI we hosted the CFI conference for you guys, or we shared it. We shared the conference, but we had the guy from CFI Vancouver on the podcast a while ago.
Yeah, John Lundberg.
Have you got any other events coming up in the next, say, 3 to 6 months? Nothing
in the works right now, but we have traditionally, several of us attended the BajaCon conference up in Sarnia, Ontario, Canada. They have typically a dozen speakers, and typically they are at least 4 or 5 of them are from the Clergy Project. So it's kind of a ready-made conference for us to go to. So we went up there last year for their first one, and there were 10 Clergy Project folks there together face to face, which was our biggest gathering so far. So we're trying to promote that. And there's some talk about putting together our own conference sometime. So hopefully we can do that soon.
Yeah, I've seen in my feed some posts about the BajaCon. Baja makes me think of like Baja, California, Mexico, but then you say Sarnia, and then like that doesn't matter. What is BajaCon? Yeah,
I get that. It's Blue Water Atheists, Humanists, and Agnostics, and it's an atheist group in Sarnia, so it's always at the same location. Yeah.
Okay. So Blue Water being there on the Great Lakes, presumably.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thanks for joining us. Any parting thoughts you'd like to share, or we've covered everything?
Well, just that the Clergy Project is an entirely volunteer-run organization at this point, and they can visit clergyproject.org, our public website, and learn more about our organization. Religious leaders can learn how they can apply, and everyone can learn how they can donate to the cause. So we invite everybody to take a look and be a part of the movement.
Right. And I will put the link in the description. So if you are interested in donating to the Clergy Project, you can find the link. If you yourself are either current or former clergy looking for help, you can find the website and go to them for the counseling and support that you might need. So great. Well, thanks, Lon. It was great talking to you. I know we've been bouncing back and forth on a couple of dates for a while, but glad we could finally nail down a date. So
yeah, we're busy guys.
Yeah, well, it's great to have. I've been wanting to talk to someone from the Clergy Project for a while, so I'm glad we were able to connect.
And if you'd like to talk to a few more, we could probably arrange that. So.
Yeah, if you've got some people who want to come on and talk about what they went through, I'd be happy to have them on the show in the future.
Yeah, and check Apostate Ashley's YouTube videos. She's interviewed probably 10, 12 of us at least. Okay. So
I'll put her link in too. If I can, I'll go look at that after the show.
Apostate Ashley. Yeah, that's about it. Just spread the word. I'd like everybody to know about the Clergy Project.
So would I.
Yeah, even, people that are religious leaders now and younger folks that are thinking they're going to go into ministry, and, things change. We change our minds, and they need to know we're around should they need us.
Yeah. Well, it's a great mission. So, okay. Well, thank you very much for coming on. As I mentioned, you can find the links in the description if you yourself need these resources. I'd like to remind everyone to please like and subscribe, and we'll see everybody on the next episode. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks for listening, and don't forget we're on YouTube, so follow us on YouTube. Just search for Atheist Alliance International and please subscribe and hit that notification bell. We're also on all of your favourite podcast platforms, so make sure that you follow us on there as well. See you next time.